Hi, I'm Don Jurgler, editor of Claims Journal. Our team here works to bring you regular videos highlighting experts speaking for a few minutes on a claims-related topic they wrote about for us recently. The videos are part of a new initiative to bring you a better, redesigned Claims Journal experience, which includes an entire section of expert viewpoints with trends and insight. Take a moment to check out our new homepage and other expert viewpoints on claimsjournal.com. We hope you enjoy this brief interview. Thank you. Hi, I'm here with Katya Hills with the Watch Register. Thank you for being here.
Hi, Don. Really good to see you.
Well, yeah, before we get started, can you tell me a bit about what you do there and what the Watch Register does? I think it's kind of unique enough to hear extensively about, in fact.
Yeah, absolutely. So the Watch Register is a global database of lost, stolen, and counterfeit watches. We're part of a wider organization called the Art Loss Register that's been around for 35 years. And what we do is essentially we work very closely with insurance companies globally to provide watch recovery services as well as fraud detection tools. And we also work really closely with law enforcement agencies across the globe, theft victims directly, as well as traders of pre-owned watches in order to trace stolen goods as they're passing through the market. And I myself work very closely with our insurers and police forces in order to consolidate as much stolen data as possible into our database to make it as reliable and comprehensive as a resource as it can possibly be.
Well, yeah, it's quite an operation. And until I spoke with you the first time, I didn't realize luxury watch theft was a thing or that big a thing. And now we're going to kind of turn to luxury watch fraud. It's a kind of a relatively new trend, right?
Yeah, so I guess luxury watch fraud has existed for quite some time, but when we really saw the change was in the COVID pandemic. So 2020, we can't forget it. Traditional sort of acquisitive crime dropped. So things like theft, house burglaries, robbery, because clearly lots of people were staying at home. They weren't wearing their watches out in public. And jewelry stores were, shutting shop. So what we found at that time was that criminals were basically looking for new ways to make money. So fraud, especially around transactions, especially online transactions, really surged. And at the same time, what we have seen is that luxury watches have really become a very convenient tool for opportunistic insurance fraud. And we believe the reason for that is the growth of the pre-owned market and the proliferation of fake watches on the market as well. These are really key drivers of fraud. And also we put it down to the fact that on the whole, insurers are still not conducting as robust verification on the watch itself at the point of offering policies and paying out on claims. So what we're really trying to encourage insurers to do is to carry out serial number verification. So not just looking at the person, but also looking at the item as part of their fraud detection processes in order to maximize the deterrent and flush out more of this sort of fraud.
Yeah, you mentioned the pre-owned market, and that's fascinating in itself. I didn't realize there was a pre-owned market for luxury watches, but it kind of makes sense. I mean, it's huge, right?
Yeah, it's really booming, and that's been over the last sort of 10 to 15 years or so, and predictions of sort of how the market is changing over the coming years are saying that the secondary market will actually exceed the value of the primary market in the next 10 years. So this is really an industry that is growing very rapidly, and it's a very informal industry in many respects, not at all levels of the market, but we do see a lot of informal trading, transactions done in cash, lack of documentation around transactions. So as you can see, it's very it's a place where it's easy for thieves to resell stolen goods, but it's also easy for opportunistic fraudsters to take advantage of this market and exploit it.
Well, you mentioned in a piece that you wrote for us on this topic that some claims adjusters have indicated they believe the proportion of fraudulent insurance claims for watches to be 50% or more. I mean, that's a lot. Can you talk about that a bit?
Yeah, sure. So clearly the position will vary from insurer to insurer, and it also depends on the nature of the policy. So for example, domestic policies where the luxury watch is not a specified item, there will be little to no due diligence carried out by insurers on the item itself. And also in these cases, it's not typical for insurers to request ownership documentation or proof of loss. So as you can see, there will be a greater risk of fraud in those sorts of areas. But we see really a vast variety of types of frauds when it comes to luxury watches. So, fictitious losses, multiple claims for the same item, use of counterfeit watches, counterfeit papers, exaggerated values. And so we really do see all these different types. So ultimately, I would say no insurer is immune to that. And it's really important for them to protect themselves, not just at the claim stage, but particularly also at the underwriting stage, when it is still possible to ask the policyholder for additional documentation because the watch is still in their possession.
Yeah, when I first heard about the luxury watch fraud, I was like trying to get my head around that. Like, why would that be occurring? But then when you look at the dollar signs around these pieces, and and then like you said, the flood of the fake watches, it makes sense that this is a kind of an MO for some of these criminals. Well, of the various fraud methods, like which is the most prevalent and which is the trickiest, you'd say, to detect?
So the most prevalent, I would say, are fictitious losses. So people saying, I went out for a walk in the park with my dog and the watch slipped off my wrist, or people claiming that they lost the watch at sea when they were on holiday. And, we've actually had cases where we've found watches that have been allegedly lost at sea on the market when they've been resold with no clear signs of water damage, and in some cases being offered by the policyholder themselves. So as you can see, these sorts of stories are very questionable. And the other question you had was sort of what's the most difficult to detect? Is that right? So with that one, I'd say situations like where a policyholder can simply purchase watch paperwork online on, e-commerce sites, and you can buy that sort of paperwork for about $100 and use it to make a fraudulent insurance claim. And this is actually genuine paperwork. So it's really difficult to disprove that this person owned that watch. And similarly, scenarios where, for example, a policyholder claims that they received a watch as a gift or as part of inheritance. And so they can't provide any ownership documentation, such as a purchase receipt. Again, very hard to disprove.
Well, can you give us a kind of a juicy anecdote, like it's a good case for the true crime aficionados out there?
Yeah, sure. So our database, I mean, it holds data dating back many years, and we had a recent recovery case for a high value Patek Philippe watch, which was a 1930s model. So it's a really rare piece that was stolen from an Italian collector along with 5 other high value Patek Philippe watches back in 2015. And what happened was he met the prospective buyers of these watches at a bank in order to, show them the pieces that they were going to buy, have a look at the condition and agree a deal. The watches were then wrapped up and put in a bank safe, and those were going to be released to the prospective buyers when the seller received the funds. He then waited some time, realized that he actually didn't have any money coming through. So he attempted to make contact with the other party and couldn't reach them. So then he went to the bank and looked in the safe and found that, in fact, the watches had been replaced with counterfeits. So essentially, he'd been defrauded at the point of that transaction. So exactly the sort of thing that, we were talking about. As you can see, these sorts of frauds have been around for a very long time. And in 2023, we were then contacted by the FBI because agents of theirs who were operating in Colombia had identified one of these Patek Philippe watches in the hands of an organized criminal gang. And they knew that the watch was stolen, but they didn't know who it was stolen from. So they asked us to help verify the ownership, and we were able to put them in touch with the insurer who had paid out on the original loss and had registered those watches on our database. So fortunately, we were able to complete a successful recovery and sell that Patek Philippe watch for the benefit of the insurer for $170,000. So that was a really interesting case, and also quite an unusual one in the sense that the watches had been in the hands of organized criminal gangs for 8 years, which is quite unusual.
Wow, a lot of people put a lot of effort into this. Like I said, I guess it's the dollar signs and it's just too tempting. But, well, thank you for being here. This has been great. Appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Don. Good to speak to you.